Welcome to PM in the PM. This is the weekly Monday afternoon podcast where I take a news item and look at how it links with the ACCA performance management syllabus areas. The benefit of listening to these is to see and understand real-world application of what you're learning. It means you're more likely to remember it and also give better answers to application questions. And of course, it will help with both PM and APM. So what are we looking at today? So I live in the UK, and recently it was announced they are going to increase the fees that university students pay. They've been unchanged for about 8 years, and they're going up by around 3.1%. Now, students have to pay these fees in order to study at university, and the new fee for a full-time student will be £9,535 a year. And many students have to take out a loan to pay for these fees, and they pay interest on those loans, currently around 7.3%. A number of people are upset by this. A lot of students are probably unhappy that the cost of their university studies is going to increase, and therefore they're going to pay more interest, and that interest compounds over many years as they're paying back. Now in the UK, all or almost all universities are considered as non-profit entities, and that's how it feeds into performance management. In Syllabus Area E, there are a couple of aspects around non-profits. One is the ability to measure performance in non-profit organisations and public sector. Also, the ability to explain value for money and how the 3 E's can be used to achieve value for money. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So what is value for money? Value for money means providing a service in a way which is economical, efficient and effective. Economy, efficiency and effectiveness are the 3 E's of value for money. So what does each of those stand for? So economy, the first E, is about attaining the appropriate quantity and quality of inputs at the lowest cost. This isn't to be confused with cheap, and sometimes the examiner does use the word cheap as a distractor. So if you see cheap in relation to economy, that would be false. It's about obtaining the appropriate quantity and quality of inputs at the lowest cost. Efficiency is the relationship between inputs and outputs. And effectiveness is how those outputs relate to the objectives of the organisation. Now, the 3 E's are typically in conflict. If we want to be effective and achieve the organisation's outputs and its objectives, one way to do this is probably to put more resource into it, but then that goes against economy. That's one of the challenges that non-profit organisations face, is how they get the balance between the 3 E's. So just to recap, economy is about inputs, and it's normally referenced in terms of money or resources such as labour, materials, time. And effectiveness, that's the output and how the output relate to the objectives of the organisation. And this is typically going to be measured by the results of the activity or the services and the quality of those services actually produced. And efficiency is how well those inputs is turned into the outputs. Efficiency typically is stated as a rate. So it may be, taking a hospital for example, is the number of patients treated per $1,000. Or it could be in a university, the students per class or class size. And perhaps in something like a police force is the crime solved per police officer. Efficiency is always the relative term. Now, how does this come up in the exam? How can it be questioned? You could simply be asked in a multiple choice, what are the 3 E's? And there'll be some distractors there. Another approach the examiner could take is to ask, is it harder or easier to have performance measures for non-profits? And the answer is it's harder. It's because we have multiple objectives in non-profit organisations, multiple stakeholders. It could give you one of the 3 E's and a list of possible performance measures and ask you to choose one of those that is the correct one for the E that you've been given, either economy, efficiency or effectiveness. Or they could flip it around. They could give you the performance measure and ask you which of the 3 E's that performance measure relates to. I have seen a section C question where there are a few marks just for coming up with the definitions. You were given the 3 E's and you had to define each of them. That was only part of the question, and then it went on and you had to assess performance against each of the 3 E's for 3 different police forces. If you're not a big fan of calculations, there could be a few in 3 E's. You could be given some data and have to work out, for example, the efficiency measure by taking some of the data they've given you and work out that rate. So you will need to do some calculations, particularly in section C questions. This does come up in sections A, B and C. So there's a little summary, a little approach of the value for money and the 3 E's in non-profit organisations. And obviously it was triggered by this recent bit in the news in the UK with universities increasing the fees that students charge to study there. So I hope that's been useful. Look out for next week's. We'll try and find something else that comes up in the news this week and how it relates to performance management. So thanks for tuning in to PM in the PM. I hope you found this episode informative. Love to receive feedback in the comments. And if you have any colleagues who you think might find these useful, please do share. And until next time, this is Richard Guyver signing off.